You're listening to the Brian Mansell Show exclusively on Spotify and YouTube. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Brian Mansell Show. As always, I'm your host, Brian Mansell, and I've got a podcast or a vodcast, whatever you want to call this. To me, this is a podcast dedicated to all of the NFL fans and football fans out there, as well as those who are more savants of the analytical data side of things, as well as those who watch a lot of tape and film and love those kind of breakdowns. This show's got a little bit of everything for everyone, and that's what my show's purpose is for. It's not just for one average fan just spewing takes 24/7. It's not just the person who talks nothing but data and advanced metrics the entire time. And it's not somebody who just watches film the entire time. This podcast is dedicated to everyone in their own little ways. Today, we're going to talk about the top stories from this past week. We've got a few retirements to talk about. We've got a couple different stories to talk about, including one involving Russell Wilson getting a visit with the Jets. We'll talk a little more about that. Afterwards, we'll get into the executive turnover that's happened in the NFL post-draft. We got general managers finally getting hired now. The searches are now starting after the draft process. Shout out Minnesota. And then we're going to talk about also a couple front office guys, football operation presidents. These guys are going to be now, some of them have stepped away, some of them resigned. We're going to talk a little bit about why this turnover is happening now post-draft and why wasn't this happening in the offseason, finding a general manager, figuring out this football ops situation. Why couldn't that happen before the draft, but afterwards it had to happen? We'll get a little bit more detail on that. And then the biggest news breaking in college football, the story with Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby, the investigation by the NCAA into his gambling issue, where we're talking this guy was doing it on average about 20 bets a day and spent over $10,000 on some of his worst days. And we're going to go fully into what that means for his NFL draft stock, how that's going to affect his college career, and what are the next pathways for him to continue his football career after this investigation concludes. We'll talk about every possibility and every story we have on that. Then we have the QB battle in Cleveland. There's a story coming out talking about Watson beating Sanders early at the mini camps already, the rookie mini camps, and from voluntary workouts, we're seeing Deshaun Watson playing at a higher level right now than Shedeur Sanders. So we're going to kind of go into that a little bit. We're going to break open the tape and just take a look at what was it about Sanders' game last year, what stood out, made him so good, and where were his faults? Was it really him? Was it the protection? Was it the weapons? And then how does that compare to Watson, who hasn't picked up an NFL football in over a year? We're going to see what the difference is and how is it that Watson is beating him so early. We'll go through that a bit, and then finally we'll wrap up with our feel-good moment of the weekend. Spoiler alert, it's got something to do with a retirement, unfortunately, but I do want to give that a special spotlight. So without further ado, let's get into the show. And so we go into our top stories from this week in football. Now, these are the stories we're not going to give a lot of attention to. We're just going to kind of rapid fire through them because these are the most important stories to know about that have happened in this last week. We're going to go through all of them. I'll give you guys a couple signings, a couple big moments that really are worth noting in all of this. First off, let's start with the New York Giants making waves. They signed D-tackle Shelby Harris, who's been in the league for over a decade, one of the most respected defensive tackles in the league, appeared in over 140 career games. Now, the reason why we see this happen, you look at what the Giants did in this draft process ever since they traded Dexter Lawrence for the number 10 pick, which they used to get Malinois. They have had this massive gap on the D-line, which is arguably now one of the worst groups in football at that position. So we're going to have to see the Giants do a little extra spending to try and fill up the holes on that line, as well as get a few more pass rushers in there, guys who have that two-gap ability or at least can rush the passer from the interior spots. That would be nice. So they go for a guy like Shelby Harris, who has had a long career doing both pretty effectively. Not at the highest level, but at a solid, respectable level. And it's not just Shelby Harris they go out and also get Leki Fotu, who they get to a one-year contract. 6-year vet, has 15 career tackle for losses, 4.5 sacks, spent time with Vegas and Houston last year, has played in 26 career games, at least started in those games. And for this, again, with the Giants, they're just trying to fill spots. I think they're trying to make a run right now at DJ Reader. And because of the issues they have on the D-line, they know that this is an important spot they have to emphasize and take care of right now. So we give that a lot of attention because they just need to rebuild this line. It's the most important position on the team right now to fill. Their secondary, they've done a good job. The draft process, they've been solid all the way around. But at that position, they didn't do enough to address it. Now they're taking care of it. And if they get DJ Reader, this line becomes so much stronger. And I really like that opportunity and chance for them to execute in that area. Because once you fill that spot, I'm terrified for what the Giants can do in the NFC East if things go well in year one with Harbaugh. So these are two budget investments here just to have something in case they can't pull off DJ Reader. That's my belief here. But let's move on to the next big story here. Aaron Rodgers was hit with a UFA tender before last Monday's deadline, and that's because the Steelers want to make sure they have this guy under wraps. The way the UFA tender works is if a team wants to sign Aaron Rodgers, they can't because the Steelers have first rights. And in that sense, if the Steelers sign him, then we're talking about, he's coming out of retirement. He's going to play for the Steelers. He can't play for anybody else. That's it. That's straightforward how it works. Aaron Rodgers, if he comes out of retirement, he can play for the Steelers only unless the Steelers say, thank you for coming out of retirement. We're good. We have our position filled already. You're free to sign elsewhere. That's the only place where the tender doesn't work. When you place something down like this, it's a safety net. It allows that flexibility for you to be able to let your young guys work. Remember, the Steelers went out and drafted Drew Aller, and they also have Mason Rudolph, and they also have Will Howard, who did not play last year. These guys are going to have time now to work, to develop, and get better, while Rodgers awaits to make his decision, which realistically, if you're going to perform at a high level this year, you should have made your decision by now. If Rodgers waits another month to make a decision, I really don't know how prepared he's going to be to play football another year. Mike Tomlin's already said it. He was on Football Night in America the other day, which congrats to him. NBC analyst now, brand new. Congrats to him on the new job. He even mentioned he's willing, he said, gun to his head. Gun to his head. I believe Rodgers will play another year at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Gun to his head. So that means he's willing to bet his life on it that they are going to have Rodgers for this season. I don't believe that, honestly. I'm not 100% invested because typically this is a decision you've got to make early. I don't want to go give any more attention to this because I feel like this is just dragging out an unnecessary thing where the Steelers should just be moving on and moving forward. This is not a waiting situation. Okay, you just won the division last year. You got to keep moving forward. You got to replicate. You got to go back to back. So that should be your number one focus. You shouldn't be waiting for a quarterback to make a decision who probably won't have the same level of impact he had last year, which arguably wasn't great. So there's a whole level of systems to my belief here on Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers here. But they put the tender down just in case he decides he's not going to retire. He wants to play another year. So now they have first right to sign him. We go to the next big deal. Azeez Al-Shaair gets a 3-year, $54 million extension. And that's coming from Rap Sheet and from Garofalo. Rap Sheet being Ian Rappaport, who also signed his deal to stay with ESPN, also NFL Network, that is. So kudos to him. Congrats to him on staying with the big conglomerate. Now, when you go through the story with Azeez Al-Shaair, you watch his tape from this year, there's no denying he was one of the most effective tacklers in football this past season. I think anybody who thinks otherwise wasn't watching enough games. This guy was something special. I thought he was excellent. Him, To'o played really well. The whole linebacker group was solid. The edges were phenomenal. I had no problems with his defense. It was one of the best in football. One of the best front sevens I've seen. So he's now one of the top paid linebackers in football with this deal. It was going to be a contract year for Al-Shaair. Now it's no longer the case. And don't forget, there was also rumors that supposedly Al-Shaair was going to be traded because there was talks that Dallas wanted to make a pitch at him, but the Texans ultimately signed this, so this is not happening. That's out the window. Don't even worry about it anymore. So Azeez Al-Shaair staying with the Texans for at least the next 4 years. I'm sure there's an opt-out in there somewhere, but we have this contract now locked in. He's there for the next few years. We're going to give a little bit of attention to this. I didn't want to give too much attention, but Fernando Mendoza was asked about his White House visit on May 11th. It's on the same day as a day of practice because Indiana won national championship. They're going to the White House. Is he going to go? So he was asked if he can, and this was his response.
planning the trip to the White House, I think 11th, May 11th, later this month. Are you able to make that trip? Are you planning on going there?
I believe May 11th is the first day of OTAs. If it is on the first day of OTAs, like I said, I'm on the bottom of the totem pole here. I got to prove myself. I can't miss practice. I don't know anything official. I don't have the calendar, but I just wouldn't, as a rookie, I don't think that's a good look. And I want to, try to best serve my teammates. And I don't know if that'd be accomplishing that goal.
You got to respect the kid. The kid is super, super knowledgeable and knows what he needs to do. And I know a lot of people have different takes, like, oh, it's a little bit egotistical, this and that. It's like he thinks he already has the job already. No, that's not how that works. The kid is there because he knows he's got a job to do. If he's going to be the franchise star in the near future, he needs to be there every day. And he needs to be invested in the team and move on from his past. It's great that he won a national championship. It's great that he won a Heisman. That's past now. Now it's about succeeding at the NFL level. It's that growth, that maturity that tells you the kind of quarterback he is, the kind of person he is, the kind of leader he can be. And when you see that kind of behavior from a guy like this, I really like it. Other people said it was performative. I disagree. I think you got to know here. This guy knows he's the QB2 on the roster to start, but he wants to get as far ahead as possible on the playbook, on the way they want to run things in Vegas with the Raiders. I don't see a bad thing about this, but yet you still have some media people that go, well, it could have been this or that. And like, dude, respectfully, keep quiet. Like this kid knows exactly what he's doing. He's doing everything right. If you talk to any other coach, you talk to any other executive, you talk to any coordinator, they're going to agree with him. They want him there every day because if you're the franchise star, commit to the team. Stop looking at the past. That's what they'll say to you. And he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. So I respect the heck out of Fernando Mendoza for this because that's the right move. It's the right mentality. That's the right answer to the question. The Packers are having Chase Claypool come in for a tryout at the rookie minicamp. This guy has not touched a football field since 2023. It's been 3 years. I mean, seriously, he hasn't touched a field in 3 years. I respect them trying to give him a chance. They even tried him out at tight end, other teams. Didn't work out. For Claypool, I wish the best. I don't know how this is going to go. I hope he does well. We're talking about the former Steelers and Bears wide receiver. This guy, one of the biggest what-ifs for the draft, coming out of the draft, because this guy was really hyped on, and he did really well his first year, and it just never replicated after that. He just couldn't stick. I don't know what it was with him. Some people blame attitude. There's a couple things, but I disagree. I just think something happened. His game just didn't translate correctly, but if the Packers find something there they like, it's a worthy investment, at least to have on your bench. So I'll give him that. So it's worth the tryout. We'll see how he does against the rookies. Let's get to another big story. Russell Wilson is in serious talks right now with CBS about becoming a studio analyst and taking Matt Ryan's spot. This is a real story. Andrew Marchand, it's not a joke. He recently took a visit with the Jets, which is the other story I had from last week. But there is a future in TV for him because it's a real scenario. He has experience and has had interest in doing so. So for Russell Wilson, if the tryout didn't go well with the Jets and the Jets aren't going to sign him, I do think a year in TV would be pretty solid for him. I don't think that's a bad idea. And you never know what's going to happen after the fact. So for Russell Wilson's case, I like this for his professional career, his career after football. There's levels, but I do think this is very good for him. You're a good leader. You're a good veteran voice. But there comes a point when you have to accept the fact that you're not going to be the lead guy anymore. You're just not. And the sooner you accept that, the better. And I think for Russell Wilson's case, this isn't a terrible thing. And now we move on to the next big story here that I have listed, which is at the end of our news talk, the executive turnovers. So let's get to that. That's going to wrap our top stories from the week. Let's get to the more high-profile stories that have been sticking out that we're going to talk about, starting off with the turnover after the draft within the NFL. It has been something just worth mentioning. We got to go through it. So in the last week, we've seen a few big changes in NFL front offices. As you guys know, the Vikings have been operating without a GM ever since they fired Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah back in January when they were at the Senior Bowl. So ever since that happened, they've been operating without a general manager throughout this process. They are now beginning the search. They have not made a decision yet as of this recording. This has not happened. So they're still going on with the search. We don't know who the top candidates are, but we're seeing a big change there with Minnesota in that case. They're now finally taking a look at general manager, which means ownership and operations and coaches were making the draft picks on draft night. So just keep that in mind if you ever complain about the draft picks made by the Vikings. But then that's not just the only story. Apparently in Tennessee, we had another major story break. Supposedly, and I'm just saying supposedly, Chad Brinker, who was the president of football operations for the Titans, stepped down. Now, I don't know the full extent of the story as to why he stepped down, but he's been in the role since 2024. He was basically in charge of the whole football staff and was only reporting to the controlling owner of the franchise, which I think was Amy Strunk. She wanted Brink to lead the search for a new GM in 25, and that's how they got Mike Bergonzi, who I believe they got from Kansas City. And, he's been in this weird, in between. He was originally an assistant GM with Rand Carthen in 23. He was hired because he had a strong background in salary cap management and planning, and he was more focused on using analytics for acquiring players and just evaluating talent in general. Now, I've told you guys, I do like analytics. I like my data. I think most data can be beneficial, but you can't just rely solely on the data. The eye test matters too. Because analytically, a guy could be one of the most efficient in the game, but if you watch him and there's no pop and there's no effectiveness, he's not going to translate and he's not going to play well. Because there's got to be something in his game that you physically see that the tape doesn't show, that the data doesn't show. And you got to understand that. Like, we're going to look at how often he hits an in-breaking route. If we just go for a slant, just go for a dig. How often do his routes result in those specific breaks? But you'll be like, oh, they're going to use him more like that. But you watch his ability on the field, and you see where he's the most effective, and you're like, but he doesn't set into the breaks well, but they keep using him that way, so why don't they throw him outside? Why don't they run him more breaking to the sideline rather than breaking inside? What's going on there? Why don't they use him out for screens on the sidelines or along the line of scrimmage? What's going on? You won't see that necessarily in the data as much. And what I don't understand about that whole thing is just this one note for y'all, just so y'all understand. Okay. What does the data have to do with the cap management? Because I've said this before when we've live streamed some of our stuff, just doing gaming content, and the way I've explained it is there's only so much a team can take from a player. Eventually, it's basically, we're paying you, let's say, $19 million a year as a receiver. So we're expecting you to put up, we're expecting you to put up 850, 900 yards, get like 6 touchdowns. You got to be this active, got to have a good catch rate, this and that. So you get the ball, you better catch it, you better make the most of it. We're paying you that money so you do so. So I understand the business side of that, but if you don't hit that mark and you finish with 700, or you finish with 600, or you miss 8 games due to injury, so you finish with 300. That really puts into doubt, why do we pay you this much? And the analytics side of things determine, is he losing his speed? Is he settling into breaks better? Is his durability dropping? Can we trust him long term? They use that stuff to really determine, why are we paying this guy this much? Is he still worth what he's being paid? And the larger that gap grows, the more likely a team's either going to release him or they're going to trade him. And that's what they do. And I think that's what Brinker was trying to create, which isn't a bad theory in process in terms of sports business practice. But at the same time, it's kind of scummy a little bit because you're disrespecting the player as a human. You're just looking at them as a data point on a chart rather than just kind of talking to the person, respecting who the person is. There's been a lot of turnover in leadership. We still don't know the reason why he stepped down as the main leader of the operations of the football department there. But what I do understand is this whole turnover happening now. And this is what I feel like I got to explain to you guys because this can be very confusing as to, why now? That is the number one thing I've seen come up from a lot of people. Why did they wait till now? The reason why that happens is because teams want to let these guys go through the draft process and then make the change, because to make the change in the middle of the draft process disrupts your scouting department, your ability to properly evaluate your players. So when we look at this from the broad scale, from the broad lens, we're seeing these teams keep them for longer or just wait in general to hire somebody because they don't want to disrupt the process. Because no matter what, don't forget this, just because the coach is fired doesn't mean that the departments themselves are fully cleaned out. You will see teams get rid of their coaching staffs, but their scouting departments stay because they trust them. If the scouting department's not effective and the results fade, they clean the scouting department. They get rid of the scouts that are ineffective, that are making bad calls, and then they bring in new ones. There's a high turnover rate in the scouting department across the league. It's not the most loved, it's not the most respected, but it is a very volatile and important industry. And that's because these coaches don't have time to scout everybody in the NFL. In college, it's the same deal. You really think that Nick Saban was constantly recruiting all the time by himself, leading the recruiting efforts? They had a bunch of regional scouts, local scouts that they would have on the payroll go and look and watch these guys at the high schools and determine who was worth the investment. And then also you have the rankings, the ratings and everything. Guys rated well by Huddle or 24/7 Sports. You see that they're going to send scouts out for that. But overall, like we're talking about a department that's so necessary, and they have their own process. And when there's a coaching staff change, it's one thing, because coaching staff, they have their way of doing things, yes. But in order to draft, you need a coaching staff, because then you know what's the direction that the staff wants to go, not necessarily let's just grab the best players there. No, you need coaching staff there in order to have a direction for your team based off the prospects you select. And that's been the reason why you see the coaches are always there for the draft process. It's very, very rare that a team will make draft picks without the coach's involvement. The coach has to be involved. General manager, that's iffy, because the general manager does the will of the coach, but if the coach is still there and the GM is gone, then there's no point. Now, if you're getting rid of the GM early in the process, like let's say it's week 10 and your team's 1-8. They're 1-8. They had a bye week already. They clean the GM out. They get rid of the GM. The coach is staying though because it's only his first year. They're gonna get a new GM, and because it's early, they have the time to do the search. So you could have a new GM as early as beginning of January, and once that happens, that can still go because you have the coaching staff in place, and you've had time to evaluate and talk to other prospects that you would like to have be your general manager. When you fire at the end of the season, that delays the time. But you still have an adequate window, I would say about a 2-week window to get a new general manager, 2 to 3 weeks. The Vikings, as to why they waited this long, is because they fired their general manager at the Senior Bowl in the last week of January. You don't do that. Now you've delayed your process of recruiting and a new GM, and then now it's going to throw off your whole process. So what you need to do is, at that point, do what Minnesota did. You wait. You're going to wait. You wait for your process to finish. Once you've done your scouting, once your picks are made, with the coaching staff leading the way on top of ownership input, then you go ahead and you go do your search. Timing is everything. If you miss that window and you fire your guy and you get rid of him and you don't have an immediate answer right away to hire and replace him, you're better off just not hiring one until after your draft in April, which is what they did. So I totally understand why the Vikings did it. The Titans one's a little weird because he was on the team, made the picks, and then resigned. And honestly, when you read the story about with Brinker, he didn't have as much involvement in the draft process as you think. He was very tied to the scouting department, yes, and analytics was playing a huge role here. But he gave the power to Borgonzi to build the roster, which means it was the general manager to build the roster. But Borgonzi wanted him there. So what ended up happening is, my guess here, just so everybody's aware, my guess, Brinker was likely aware that he was going to lose his job. He was aware he was going to lose his job at some point, so he made the decision on his own to stay until the draft. He asked if he could stay to the draft. They said yes. And he decided after the draft, I'm going to resign after the draft. They go, okay, fine. You could stay for the draft process. Now, typically, if a team really doesn't like you and really doesn't want you there, they're not going to give you that luxury. But in this case, he had a great relationship with the owner, so that changes things. You don't have a good relationship with the owner, they don't care. They're just going to get rid of you. He had a good relationship with Amy Strunk. So he probably got a good deal. He got to stay to draft, and then after that, he resigned. This way to avoid being fired and letting it be a whole little thing. I think that was definitely a part of it. Because you look at the results haven't been there. No reason for him to stay after that. So that's kind of the way that the late changes kind of work. You know, it's a lot of just timing. If the timing isn't right, you won't see these guys draft with a new general manager, and they won't get that new general manager until after the draft process is completed. Some guys who know they're going to get fired, have a good relationship with the owners, they're going to negotiate some kind of deal to stay there until after the draft and then resign or be fired. That's the only difference. So that's kind of what we're looking at when it comes to why those late changes happen. But that's going to lead us into our next topic. Let's talk about Brendan Sorsby and what's happening with his situation at Texas Tech, because he is under investigation now for a gambling problem. And we've seen this happen in the past, but not at the extent of what this is going to lead to. Now, if you don't know, Sorsby played at Cincinnati last year. He's been in the league. He's been in college for quite a while. He was eligible for the draft this upcoming year, 2027 draft. He was going to be one of the top prospects. It was well expected this dude was going to be one of the top picks, potentially a Heisman favorite according to some people. But if you ask me, I don't think that was going to be the case. I'm not 100% on the belief that he was going to be this kind of major star. I do think he was very good, though, and a lot of front offices had a lot of good things to say about Sorsby. But let's just kind of focus on this gambling thing for a minute, because that's really the number one story. It's not about how I feel. It's about really what is the story with him. What happened? And here's the best answer I could give you. Okay? The best I could give you. Sorsby was caught gambling. His gambling addiction was very, very bad. The worst that we saw, and this is coming from Pete Nakos, who has reviewed the betting data. Again, the story coming from On3, if you ever want to check that out. Check out their stuff. They're really good, up to date with all this big sports news. The data says that dating back to 2022, basically when he started playing ball, he placed more than 10,000 wagers. And at one point was averaging bets at 20 per day. He was averaging 20 bets per day and placed more than 10,000 wagers from 2022 to recently. That is an addiction if I've ever seen one. I know a lot of people in my life who gamble, and they do like gambling. I'll say that much. And it's mostly just sports betting. So thank goodness it's just sports betting, but it really is a problem. Like, it's not an exaggeration. It is a problem. Because I see people who go in there and they'll spend $1,000 in one night just betting, and they'll maybe profit. They won't even hit a profit. They'll probably lose about $200. And that's an issue to me. So you go in there, you spend $1,000, make $800. That's it. You only get $800 back. And you get more nights like that, and you're slowly eating away at your money. Like, I'm going to tell you now, gambling, just so everybody's aware, I want this to be an important lesson to you all. Gambling is terrible. I've been guilty of it too, okay? I've gambled in the past. I even bet on a Super Bowl a couple years ago on it. I think it was the Chiefs 49ers. I won a parlay on that, which was great. But once you give in to sports betting and to gambling, it can get really hard to not do it. And you're going to want to be intrigued. You're like, I'm so confident this guy's good, I'm going to put money on it. And that's it. But you're promoting a degenerate culture. And I'm not calling people degenerate. I'm saying the industry is full of degenerate people. I'm not calling people who do gamble degenerate. It's the people who created the system that are degenerates. And they're money hungry bag grabbers. That's what they are. They want to take all of your money because they created an addiction in you so that you pay them and you leave with very little to nothing. But that one win you get keeps you hooked every time. Sorsby's a classic case. And he was also, the worst part of this deal with Sorsby, he was placing bets across multiple states with a bunch of different gambling apps. My guess, probably Prize Picks. We're probably talking DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, BetMGM. We're probably talking about every possible big gambling page you could use. He probably used them all. And that's the really sad part. Using 5 different gambling apps to do a bunch of different bets on each of those apps. That's the most criminal part of the whole thing. And I feel bad for him. I do feel bad because he's basically a victim in this of his own doing, yes, but a victim. And so here's the situation now that this investigation is happening. He's probably going to lose his eligibility. He's more than likely going to lose his eligibility. And for a guy like Sorsby, that is terrible. Now, it should be known, he does have a lawyer who's known, Jeffrey Kessler, who's going to try and get him back his college eligibility so he could still play this year. But if he can't do so and get back to being eligible for this season for college football, he would have to declare for the supplemental draft of the NFL. Just so you all aware, the last time we have seen a supplemental draft happen where a guy got drafted high, we're probably talking about like 1992 if you're talking a first round. If we're talking a second round, we're talking 2012. And this guy is probably not going to get a first or second, in my opinion, because he's not at that level right now where he could be next year. But for a guy like Sorsby, when you look at really the data of everything, I don't know if him being a third-round pick worthy supplemental guy is enough for a team to like willingly want to spend it. Because here's how that works. Let's just say, he doesn't get his eligibility, he meets the deadline, and he's able to declare for the supplemental. If that happens, Sorsby, with the supplemental draft, the rules are a pick in this draft would be a forfeit of a pick in the same round in 2027. So every team has a supplemental draft pick in each round, and they can pick or pass. Now the question is, would you give up a day 2 pick for him, a third-round pick? Because realistically, I would see him going in 4, but the conversations would start with 3 potentially. But I think 4 is more of a safer bet for Sorsby, and the number one thing you have to worry about here is one thing. He has to get this decision from the NCAA fast. Because if he doesn't get a decision from the NCAA in time, he won't be able to declare, which means he has to wait another year to declare. And that's another year outside of football that these teams are going to be like, well, he didn't play football in like a year. We don't know if he could really play. Like, it leads to a lot of doubt and a lot of questions, and now you may not even get drafted at all. That's the biggest risk in all of this, and it doesn't matter how good your agent is. That is a fact that can't be denied. With all the information you have right now on Sorsby, would you want your team to spend a pick on this guy? Now, another thing I want to add, which there's so much more information on this, Sorsby also checked himself into rehab. He checked himself into rehab for the issue involving his gambling addiction. Because of his gambling addiction issue, he's actually gone to go and get a, how do you say it? He's gone to go fix his gambling addiction. He knows it's a problem. He wants to show teams he's serious about fixing it. So he's now going out and he's actively taking it upon himself to get better. And respectfully speaking, the smartest move he's made so far in this process. I hope he's able to recover and get out of it, because it's a deep pit to get out of. And I mean, I've heard horror stories involving gambling that was also never caught. So there's just so much involved in the gambling stuff here in this investigation. So many moving parts. One, is Sorsby just going to get a suspension in the settlement? Is he just going to have his eligibility pulled? Is he going to get a decision done in time before the supplemental draft deadline? Is he going to get drafted in the supplemental? What's going to be spent on him? Is he going to be ready to be on an NFL roster right now? There's so many moving parts. Also, number 6, is he actually going to stop gambling? There's so many moving parts here to this story that all you can do is just hope the kid figures it out and that he ends up getting the best scenario possible, which for me is you get suspended. Your best scenario here is he gets hit with a settlement where they settle and he gets suspended, but he can play. And he can get another year, and he could still be eligible to play this year. So realistically, in my case, I see a potential 4 to 6 game suspension for this. And then after that, he can play, which obviously doesn't help Texas Tech's case, but it does help Sorsby overall. So he doesn't have to rush through the process. He's got his own method. He doesn't have to worry about anything. So there's that. So I think for him, that would be the best course of action just to kind of avoid this whole drama. And again, all brought on by himself. He brought it on. But at the end of the day, he needs to figure this out because this is his issue. He's got to deal with it. He's got to figure this out. And so does his agent, and so does his lawyer. I want the best for him. I really do, because gambling is a very, very slippery slope. If you're not careful, it can run wild on your life. It's like the people who play lotto every day. They play it because they like the thrill of potentially winning a huge amount of life-changing money. Potentially life-changing. But then you get the people who do like a draw 4, a pick 5, or even a pick 3. And that only brings like $25,000 or $5,000. And you're sitting there, you're watching people spend $5, $10 a day on this stuff just to hope they win. Or a quick draw, which I think that's like a New York thing. Quick draw. Maybe you win $25,000, but you're spending like $5. You're spending $5, $5, $5, $5. You're spending $25 in the span of 5 days on a quick draw that you don't win. We can go so much into this whole gambling, like this slippery slope of how far it goes and how deep it can destroy lives. But in this case, I feel like we're just better off hoping that this kid Sorsby figures it out. I want Brendan to do well. And the best course of action is go to rehab, get therapy, get fixed, get better, and then hopefully you just get a suspension and a settlement, and then you could play. The worst case scenario, he doesn't get better. He's denied the settlement. They rule him ineligible after the supplemental deadline. So that would be the worst case scenario for him. But hopefully, we'll see. Maybe he gets out of it. I just want the best for him. But that does bring us into another QB controversy we want to get into. And, oh boy, the fact to even have to bring this up is a little embarrassing. Let's talk about the QB battle in Cleveland. Because Cleveland has got a story coming out which will be very much something we all want to know about. Thanks to Mary Kay Cabot, which we've heard a story from Shiloh Sanders, Shedeur's brother, about this. But Mary Kay Cabot comes out and says that so far through the minicamp, through OTAs, through voluntary workouts, it looks like Deshaun Watson has the edge right now on Shedeur Sanders. And that itself, to me, is funny. Because when we look at the story from Mary Kay Cabot, she's saying Deshaun Watson has taken the lead over Shedeur in the QB comp and has the inside track to win it. And she thinks they should declare him QB1 ASAP and let the first team offense start to work, because you can't waste any time. And the reason why, and again, everybody has a similar belief. Marcellus Wiley, here's another guy I'm going to call out here. He has $230 million on the books. It's silly to think otherwise that he wouldn't be QB1. I agree. And I mean, you go through the story on everything, you have to understand that Watson is QB1. And I know Cleveland fans don't want to hear that. And I know you already want to beat me up or whatever, or throw stuff at me. But just understand, when you're paying a guy over $200 million on a contract, you really want to play him and try and get your money's worth. Even if he's not that good, and he's not the same player he was, and he really isn't from Houston. You want to make the most of what you have. And for his case, if he's looking better, you're going to play him. If he's looking worse than before, then Shedeur would have the edge. But he's performing at a higher level than he was previously, and that's why he's getting the edge here. And I don't have to go into full detail about why Shedeur's leading. I mean, why Shedeur falling behind? Or why is Deshaun Watson ahead? What's going on? Why is Watson leading? Why is Sanders behind? I don't want to go into that. But I do want to go into, why are we in this situation? Why are we debating Sanders and Watson? And I think the only way we can do that is to go to the tape. So let's pull up some tape on Shedeur Sanders and really try to take a look at what he did well last year. Where did he struggle? Is it really his fault that he's in this predicament in the first place? Or is it just a situation of Watson's getting paid a lot? Let's see if he can, maybe work his way back and become a savior of the franchise once again. So we take a look here. It looks like it's Sampson in the backfield, Dylan Sampson. They got five on the line, add a tight end on the left there for 6. Let's just kind of look at the protection here. Okay, let's just kind of get a good look. Okay, dropping back. You see already they're under attack here. He's looking over the middle. He's got nowhere to go. Guard's getting beat here, right? And he goes to make a move. He's going to have to move out. So he sees the pockets collapsing. All of his windows are closed. If he throws it a little earlier and he locks it on this middle receiver, he might fit it into this gap, because you see here that this safety is not in good position. He's not in good position. You have this giant window here that if Shedeur is on target just a touch sooner, you probably could hit him, because look at the direction. He's got his momentum carrying here to go take out this guy. And then he's trailing and he's falling out a little. So you got his momentum still carrying through, and if you are timing it correctly, this ball should be out already and over to your guy for a touchdown. So that's one little thing. Sometimes it's an awareness thing, panicking in the pocket. But I don't blame him. The O-line definitely struggled, and you're going to see more of that as we get through here. So see, now he tries to juke out, breaking through, spins out. What I like about him is ability to make the most out of a play. Jukes back, feeds in between, just push forward, get down. There you go, in. The improbability while on the move is something super valuable for Shedeur Sanders. You look at the way he moves and the way he tries to keep plays alive, it's commendable. But sometimes it can go very wrong. Now let's take a look here at this play really quick, because this is something I want to give a lot of attention to. All right. We have this situation here where Shedeur is in the shotgun again, but this time he's got the running back to his right. I believe that is Ford. And then on the left side, you've got 3 receivers. You got 1 on the opposite side. You've got 5 on the line. It's going to be just a simple empty protection, but you have a sign of that's going to be 6 rushers, potentially 7, with Gilman showing blitz. Now, Shedeur's looking around. He's looking to see where the protection is. What's the coverage look like? You can already tell you're going to have a man-to-man situation on the outside, and probably here you got 1 back up high, but then these 2 could be playing as well for could drop into cover 3, maybe play a zone, potentially have a sky situation. Let's see what happens. You see already trucking down. Smith dropping out. We see 1, 2, 3. We see 4 rushers. 12's dropping out. 53 watching. That's Van Noy. He's watching the outside in case he tries to escape. But look how quickly the lineman just got beat. And here comes Kyle Hamilton. Free run. He's right there. It's a great rep, too, from Kyle Hamilton. See how quickly he swings his arms through, chops through, spins out of a block from the quarterback, from the running back here. Spins out of it. Now he's got a free run. The edge is completely exposed. 72 is completely in trouble here. Knowing this issue, what is the number one thing you do here in this situation? Keep in mind, Shedeur's eyes are in this vicinity here. He's looking right here, okay? That is his number one territory where he is looking. We know that, right? Okay. In this area, you're going to have this guy round in. Roquan is trying to pick up over here. They're trying to run some kind of switch situation with these guys. The routes look good. It sells good. The O-line was not prepared for what was coming. And I don't think they were prepared for a potential safety blitz, because that's basically what happened here. But who's open? Njoku. Njoku is open this way. There is no real coverage. The goal is to set and fire. And if you'll watch it from the beginning one more time before he gets sacked here, watch how quickly Njoku gets open. Immediately. The play is to be read from left to right. Your immediate option on the left is not there. You're banking on him being there, but you're also watching the free rusher, and the tackle's not going to be able to make up the time to get there. 72 isn't going to get there. So what you need to do is quickly roll back to the right. You need to get your eyes to progress faster and fire, because you're not going to get this through. See what happens? He's running more up the field than he is across the field. His angle is a little higher than it should be, or that's just the way the route's designed. Njoku's the one open. Now he's trying to make a move to get free. That's not going to happen. He's going to get sacked, and then the ball's going to come free on a fumble, which luckily was recovered by Wyatt Teller. That's one of the big issues there. O-line right there failed him. But the progression in the reads is very important. It doesn't matter what pressure you're under, you have to make the reads. That's just very necessary. If you don't make those reads, you're going to fail. And you got to make the reads. You got to make it at a good pace. Boom, boom, boom. A pure progression that has to happen fast. I understand the mixed approach they went with. But for Shedeur, that's a big thing he has to work on. His issue I've seen constantly come in over and over again has been his natural ability to read the defense and progress through the plays. A lot of it can be pre-snap adjustments. A lot of it can be after the fact. I've talked about this about Shedeur before. That video never got aired. Shedeur has good traits. He has a solid arm. He makes solid throws. He's good at improvising. But the issue is when there's severe pressure, he cannot get out of it. He doesn't go to a dump off. He doesn't make a dump off option. He doesn't recognize that that pressure is coming. They've rebuilt this O-line now. This O-line can do a lot for him and help him. But when you have this natural mindset that's already ingrained in you, that you are not going to succeed, that becomes the problem. That you're going to get attacked. And this is something that we saw with Sam Darnold in New York. He made bad reads, he made bad decisions, and he tried to improvise. Sometimes it worked, and most of the time it failed. And this has become the number one problem. And typically, I think if you put Shedeur in a good situation with better O-line, more creativity from the offensive coordinator, with his ability to help him naturally figure out these defenses pre-snap, I think he could become much better. But really, I think a lot of his problems are in the mental. I think it's a mental thing for him, not the physical side. I think it's the mental. And we'll even look at another interception, an interception that I think really stands out to me and really shows just how rough it's been for him. Now, in this game, you all know the Bears absolutely obliterated them. They had a hard time, right? Okay, fully understand that. Now, keep in mind, this time he's going to be under center. He's going to be right here under the center. We got one guy in the back. We've got some kind of triangle look on this side. I don't know if we want to call it a trio or tray. We don't know who's X, Y, F, Z. We don't know where that is. We do know we have an isolated one here, which probably is going to be a one-on-one situation down there. We know that. Okay. We know we have also 5 on the line. Once again, empty protection. This will be off the edge. This guy might come off the edge. We're thinking this guy's going to go 1 or 2 ways here. He's going to go 1 or 2 ways here. And that's going to affect a lot of things. I expect one of these 3 to take over a zone over here in the short zone. We have this guy probably playing some kind of middle spy. And then we have probably him dropping back into the cover 2 look to help match out with number 1 up here, the 1 high. So that's essentially pre-snap what I see. Let's see how it's actually executed. Okay, we got a motion. See how they shifted? Now you know it's a zone, but it's a match. So we know that. It's a match. So he comes over this way. They shifted assignments. 9 shifting, 53 shifting, 48 shifting. Watch carefully what's going to happen. He takes the snap. Now he's going to go on the return. He's going to go back the way he was, and he's going to set in for the blocks. The blocking's holding well so far. He doesn't sell that handoff well at all. None of them bid on it if you really watch them. Watch Brisker here. Watch 9. Watch 53. Watch their reactions here. He goes down, but he notices pretty quick, like, hey, this is not going to work. But look at around. Where's the opening? Is the opening going to be up high, or is it going to be down here with 16? Who is it going to be? He's running up the field. He's made his decision. He's going to drop and hit him right here in this open zone. Typically, a great read, because right here, you're reading through it. Keep in mind, his eyes were on the left side the whole time after he snaps it right here. Okay? Handoff, immediately getting his head over to the left side. So we know the play was designed for the left. It's a half-field concept. The right side was a distraction. Now here we see him watching. He makes his decision. He wants to hit this zone here. This area here works very well. I like this spot. Very good route. Coverage matches well. I like this. This is the one time, one of the few reads that I see, and this was a very bad game for Shedeur. It started here. When this ball is thrown, this is the one time I will say outright, this was one of the worst throws of his career. Because his decision was to throw it, and it was a terribly thrown ball. It didn't work well, and it cost them. Because it tipped up, taken. Now you could say 48 made a great decision when he dropped back, because watch the linebackers. They're all going to come up to the line just in case it's a run. He's technically watching the tight end here who was holding in. And he's just kind of watching, just seeing if he runs out. He's playing a contain, and then all of a sudden he decides he's going to throw that way. He's right there. I don't know what Shedeur saw, but I don't know how he doesn't see the linebacker hiding behind the line. I mean, even from the end zone view, we're going to see it. From this view, watch carefully. Okay, 48's going to get this. That's Jackson. They shift over. Go. He's watching. He's reading the quarterback. He is literally right here. Wherever his eyes are, he's not seeing Jackson. And he just gets his hands up to tip it, tips it to himself, takes it, goes down. That's one example where I say outright, this is an issue that Shedeur has to work on. Okay, he's not recognizing what he's seeing. His awareness is not there. There's a lot that we could tie to this as a bunch of excuses. But for Shedeur to make these kind of mistakes, it's something that a rookie will make and cannot happen in your second year. You can't do this in your second year. And if he's still doing that now, that's a major problem. But let's compare that to like what we've seen with Watson in the past. You know, when you watch Watson's tape, what's different? This is from 2024, so 2 seasons ago. This, again, we know Watson got hurt during that season. He didn't play very much. Let's take a look at what happened in this Giants game here in Cleveland. I do believe the Browns lost this game, but just overall kind of take a look at what happens here. All right, this is going to be a touchdown thrown to Amari Cooper on the top left. So you'll see him at the top of your screen right up here. Just keep an eye on that matchup. It's a one-on-one design. We can complain a lot about Watson and what he did off the field, which again, very despicable. I condemn everything he did. However, when you see a throw that he makes like this, I can't say I've seen a Shedeur throw that has mimicked this at the NFL level. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So now you see they have 6 on the line for protection. You have hand down here. You got one back on the right of Watson back here. He's right down here. And so we have also one high, and then we have 2 on the right. In this case, the exact personnel would be a 11. So we're in 11 personnel here. We have 1 tight end, 1 running back. Watch off the snap, and just watch the difference. They're going to send 4, and it was a good pass rush. He stood strong, and he delivered it into a great spot on the defensive back. I believe that was Deonte Banks. Now let's watch this again and watch Watson. Okay, he's going to take the snap. Okay, 5 on the edge is going to try to create a lot of pressure, and he does a good job. He's going to beat Wills pretty good here. They're doing a combo block in the interior. Teller's doing a good one-on-one, and on the outside, 79's taking care of business there. He's immediately going to check his right. He's going to read the coverage right. He's going to see that what he wants is not there. He sees that 19's going to cross, but it's not going to help him because they got people carrying. So he's going to flip and look to his left and go look at the homer ball. He sees he got an opportunity. Now the protection's breaking down off the edge. Takes the hit, but he gets that ball out before the hit. He stands strong, though. You look at how he stands in the pocket. He stands, fires. He stayed strong through it, and that ball placed beautifully. However you feel about Deshaun Watson, you can't look at a pass like this and not see to yourself, this is QB1. Just look at where that ball is placed. It is beautifully over the head of the corner in a spot that only the quarterback can put it, that only the receiver can catch. And that is what makes it so good. So you got to give credit where the credit is due. Watson still has that ability to have that kind of touch in order to make a play like that happen. I have not seen a Shedeur throw yet that has mimicked the impact in terms of, vertical ability downfield, scoring in the red zone with your arm that is at that level. I haven't really seen that yet, but this is a good throw, and this was from about 24 yards out. So he wasn't even in the red zone. He was just outside. If we see stuff from Shedeur on that level, then that's something that I would give him credit for. But that's not what we're seeing here. We're seeing a different story. It's a different level placement, a different level of touch. And I know we just showed one throw of Deshaun Watson, but it's important to note that there is a significant difference. Now, you go through a lot of the sack tape. I try to pull up more. Unfortunately, NFL Pro keeps crashing right now, so I can't pull that up in its entirety. But I will tell you this much, just so everybody here is aware. Majority of the sacks you see on Deshaun Watson, you're going to see how often the O-line lets him down and he takes the blame and he takes the foot of it all. As much as we want to attack this guy for the things he's done in the past, you have to recognize, as a football player, he is at right now a better level to me than for Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur has a lot of progress still to make, but Watson has done a very good job in the past working with what he's had. I think for him to run in Cleveland properly this year, they've done the right things. They've retooled the offensive line. They've restructured it. It looks good. I don't think there's any denying that. I 100% believe that. I do think, though, when we talk about the long-term effects, I don't see the Browns being a top contender in the North, but I do think they could make an argument to be like a little bit of a surprise team at times. Maybe about a 5-win, 6-win squad. They have that capability. The only question is the coaching. Is Monken really cut out to be a head coach? Does he have head coach potential? Is he going to be effective? That's essentially it. And, I think it's better to have Watson run this offense right now than Shedeur. Shedeur needs a full year behind Watson to just watch and absorb everything. I don't think his best work is being a starter right now. And I already know the number one argument from Shedeur supporters are going to be, well, Shedeur went to a Pro Bowl. He was the worst qualifying Pro Bowl player I think we've seen in the last 20 years. The statistics, the numbers he had, should have never got him anywhere close to the Pro Bowl. You look at the work he did this past year, and you compare it to what Watson has done in his time as Cleveland. Do the numbers stand out for Watson? No. Are they better than Shedeur's? Yes. One of the key things for Watson that I like is that when you watch him try to extend a play, he knows when the play's going to die, and he knows when he's just got to take it. He's just got to take the sack. And I've seen it. There's a bunch of sack clips you'll see. If you want a good example, go watch the one from 2023 against the Titans. I mean, there's a play where they have 3 guys in the backfield, and one guy goes up, the other guy shoots out to the right to go pick up a block. Running back completely misses because he goes to the inside of the running back. So when that happens, he's got a free run at Watson, and Watson has to take the hit. He spins out of it, tries to keep it alive, but at that point his O-line got beat and he's been taken down. So when you look at this stuff, you have to understand the conditions for Watson compared to everybody else. Realistically, Watson is the guy. It's not Sanders. I like Sanders. I think he can be very, very good. I do not think Sanders is QB1 this year. You got to let Watson run. You got to let him run the team. And I think it's not wrong for Mary Kay Cabot to say that. She's going off information she has, and the information is correct. So realistically, I want to see Watson take over and be the QB once again. Not to say Sanders isn't good, but he needs time. He still needs more time to learn and watch, because last season's performance is not good enough for me to give him QB1. And that's the final take on that. But with this, let's go ahead and get to our final story of the day and get to our feel-good moment of the weekend. Now, this feel-good moment of the weekend is brought to you by Justin Simmons. I wanted to tell some good stories about him because Justin Simmons is considered one of the greats in Broncos history. He's just absolutely been a star and an amazing human being in that time. You go through what the story of him and you listen to the stories from the fans, and it really is an emotional thing to think about because he had to endure the worst era in Broncos history. Getting drafted in 2016, the year after they had won the Super Bowl, or a year separated from winning the Super Bowl. There was a changing ownership, to some people, to how they see it, incompetent leadership that kept the Broncos in the middle of the pack for nearly a decade. And yet through it all, Justin was the light of the defense and represented the city very well. He was the anchor of a team that literally struggled constantly. They could not get out of their own way. Through the QB changes, through the coaching changes, through the different regimes, he has been the one constant through those 10 years. And so it really hurts to see a guy who's been an anchor and a pillar for this defense take a walk away from football. And again, the community loves him. He does a lot of great charitable work, an amazing human being. Every story you'll ever hear about this guy is positive. So my feel-good moment of the week is just the positivity that's surrounding his retirement. Yes, it's sad to many, but I think it is something that you kind of feel good about because he's not medically retiring. He's not retiring because of a controversy. He's not retiring because he's a terrible person. We're not looking at this retirement from a bad lens. We're looking at it as this is an incredible human being who is an incredible football player that's leaving the game when it felt like he could have played another 4 or 5 years. And you have to respect his terms. And, that's the sad part of it. It's not anything else that I've named. It's the fact that he's such a good person and such a good player that it's going to hurt not to see him on the football field. Kind of like Luke Kuechly stepping away early. Barry Sanders stepping away early. Calvin Johnson stepping away early. Great players stepping away early in their careers where they could have played another 5 years. And that's what makes it hurt more. Especially also the O-linemen that we don't name, that are unsung heroes in the trenches. Got to give them their love too. But I'm very appreciative for Justin. I think Justin is an incredible person. I'm happy for him. I think you all should be happy for him too. And share that love a little bit. Remember him. Just remember how good of a player he was and a great human being he is. And for Denver, it's going to suck, man, not having that anchor in the secondary anymore. But you're building a good group in your secondary led by Pat Surtain. And I think that is something not to scoff at, but to appreciate. And again, Surtain learned how to be a leader from one of the best in the Broncos' last 10 years. The best leader, outside of obviously Von Miller, but Justin Simmons. Just a captain in that secondary. And now that's going to be Pat Surtain's job. So, he's got big shoes to fill. But once again, happy for Justin. Congrats on your retirement. And, we're going to miss you. We're going to miss watching you on the field on Sundays. And we're also going to miss the fact that this episode is over. We've reached the end of the episode. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for spending time with me today. We will be here again, hopefully, on Friday. No guarantees. We're going to try to be here Friday. Like I said, new episodes Mondays and Fridays. Here, the Brian Mansell Show. You can listen to us on Spotify and YouTube. Follow us, sub there, like the video, like the episode. Help it so the channel can grow more and we can do more in the future. Thank you all so much. You all are incredible. And I will see you all very, very soon. Take care. And remember what we talked about today. The number one thing to take away from this, from today's thing, from today's episode, the number one thing to take away. Don't gamble. Seek help when you need it. And also, just kind of respect the fact that although we're getting older and we're seeing our favorite players retire, just kind of appreciate the fact that you're still here. And that's the positivity in it all. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you all. I will see you again on Friday. Until then, take care.